Welcome on into GoldSheet TV NFL Week 4 recap and Week 5 Thursday Night Football preview. I'm your host, Eric Pauly, with my co-host, Dan Alexander at Newbie Talks on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it these days. And as always, on Tuesday edition of the show, Newbie and I will recap our what we did in Week 4, talk about some storylines to monitor throughout the rest of the season, and of course, break down Thursday Night Football, a special Thursday Night Football game for two reasons. One, as you probably know by now, and if not, I'm a Commanders fan. And two, I will be at FedEx Field this weekend rooting on my Commanders. So, or this Thursday, I should say. So it should be a fun time. But Newbie, talk to me. How was your Week 4? What lessons did you learn? What's been going on in your world this past weekend?
Man, we had some comments talking about, man, why all the leans? Why all the leans? Well, the lean killed me this week because the game that I had as a lean that then arrived at a play, and the game that I had as a play that then arrived at the lean for the show here, they flipped on the winners there. Eagles 8.5, never had a shot. Washington looked absolutely terrific against the Eagles. It seems like every time they play them at Lincoln Financial Field, some wacky things happen, and that team is buzzing. And then whenever the Eagles visit FedEx Field, it seems like Washington can't get out of their own way. So does history repeat itself? Who knows? All we know is we cashed the teaser leg on that one, and we paired that with Seattle on Monday night. So that was a nice, easy rocking chair winner there. The rocking chair part not coming from the Philadelphia Eagles, but the show play here that will grade it at -8.5. That one never had a shot. The Rams loved it in the teaser leg when they were getting a point. Still lean as they were laying a point. They could have laid a bunch of points and cashed that against the Colts. Rams looking prime to maybe knock off the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk about that on Thursday. So that lean would have cashed if you rode with that one. And then the pros versus Joes game of the year so far. Bills got the best of that one. But I will say, EP, nobody hopped in the comments with any suggestions on, what loser should do as we were putting the money line bet head to head there. So I think you having to watch the Commanders put together the perfect game plan and then still lose on a Jake Elliott field goal. I feel like that's punishment enough for our head to head, fun little wager that we had there.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was able to give us a suggestion there, which, we were begging for one. We would have gladly taken any suggestion that you guys had. But I guess you, Newbie, and I will just chalk it up for the whole season. We'll keep a tab on whenever these come down to any situation where we are just going back and forth against one another. So a couple of things that we did in terms of this past week of the GoldSheet team. Now, in terms of the show, you also would have got the best of me. I already got the best of you on Jacksonville there, but we didn't put that official. That did not make the card either in any capacity. Minnesota was a put that I put out as a great survivor pick. That's something that at the GoldSheet team we hit on we did a little bit of a money line parlay, actually. Minnesota and the Chiefs parlayed together. We got $1.19 on that. I think that's actually a really good way to start handicapping some games. Now, obviously, there's all these negative connotations with parlays, and while most of it is true, this is a situation where if you were getting Minnesota, say -3.5, and obviously that's not over the key number of 3, but you're able to eat the juice with I can't say lock, there's such thing as a lock, but a team that has a very high implied probability of winning, like the Chiefs heading into MetLife Stadium, who didn't even play well and still should have won that game by 10. To then have those teams money line without having to lay that field goal and still paying less juice than you would have to pay on a 3. Maybe I'm onto something. Maybe this is just a one-time, a broken clock is right twice a day kind of thing. But overall for the GoldSheet, with some big losses, unfortunately, on Monday night in terms of props, just like the Giants doing absolutely nothing, Geno Smith completing 13 passes. Neither of those were on my bingo card, and that sucked. But plus 1.14 unit week, so nothing to write home about, obviously, but better always than the latter. Newbie, we got some interesting things going on around the league, and the talk of the town is shout out to our producer Robo, his quarterback CJ Stroud.
Beast.
He's putting on an absolute great start to his NFL career, and he is on pace to break Andrew Luck's rookie passing record by a couple hundred yards at this point.
Yeah.
I think he's great. I love what I'm seeing from CJ Stroud. I also love what I'm seeing from Anthony Richardson as well. Newbie, is it way too early to be declaring that CJ Stroud is a top 10 quarterback and is going to break these records? Because that's what I'm seeing on Twitter. And to me, while I want Stroud to succeed more than anything, I'm an Ohio State fan. Like, he looks great. He's a great kid. Like, we have to pump the brakes a little bit here, right?
Yeah, maybe tap him a little bit, but I don't think you have to not go full bore on thinking that CJ Stroud has a real chance at being the offensive rookie of the year. I mean, with what he's putting together, and whenever it's these season-long awards, I always want to be able to bake in a narrative as well, because you need to have something that can sell some jerseys, that can make some sense, that can make a nice little highlight tape for the NFL awards ceremony. And CJ Stroud is putting together a highlight tape. Just think of what their win total was coming into the year, and they're already talking about soaring over that with 2 straight wins, impressive wins at that. He's flying over his posted total. The days of seeing his passing totals at 275 and below, they're going to be long gone. I mean, what he is doing, the way that he sees the field, the fact that he has his legs but doesn't need them to make things happen, he can sit back there poised in a pocket with an offensive line that still isn't quite where they need to be. I've been personally cashing tickets on this Houston team week after week after week. And if you go back and look at our season-long previews, I said that when DeMeco Ryans comes to town, this is going to be a frisky dog to be betting on all year long. And they're not making me out to be a liar. So I'm not going to tell you to slow down a little bit. Maybe make sure you still have fluid on the brakes just in case you need them. Don't cut the brake lines there, EP. But full steam ahead. I'm all in on CJ Stroud.
Yeah, already down to plus $1.75 to win the offensive rookie of the year. Really looking like a 3-man race at this point. Anthony Richardson has done enough you can't rule him out. Obviously, he has missed that one game. And Bijan Robinson, from a talent standpoint, like, he's just an absolute animal. Those jukes, like, come on, like, those are Madden. Those are better than Madden. Like, I don't even see that in Madden anymore.
If only he had a quarterback alongside him that could hit the broadside of the barn sometimes, then we'd really be talking about Bijan Robinson and the impact that he's able to have on a game.
No, 100%. I'm with you, though, that we don't need to really tamper expectations for Stroud too much. And what's the most impressive to me with CJ Stroud is how he is doing this with a makeshift offensive line. Because when the Texans' offensive line is healthy, they have talented players. Like, they have a plus offensive line. They haven't been healthy, but you wouldn't know it. And especially when you compare him to the rest of the class, which you have to do. You have Bryce Young, who has not led a touchdown drive outside of garbage time in 3 starts. Like, you have this, and now you have CJ Stroud, who's on pace to be breaking rookie records by, not even with the 16th or the 17th game meaning anything, he's on pace to beat it by a couple hundred yards. So all the kudos in the world to CJ Stroud, and also doing it with a mediocre at best receiving core. Yes, some young guys who can be better than anticipated, but huge shout out to H-Town and Robo. Looks like you guys have yourself a gem in CJ Stroud. But newbie, Christian McCaffrey, I don't even want to know how much money you would make if you would have just put $100 on his touchdowns for the last 15 games and rolled it over, because I'm sure it'd be close to 7 figures. But does this man have a chance of winning the MVP award, or seeing what Josh Allen did on Sunday just reminds you that a QB is winning this award no matter what?
I'll tell you what, I definitely think the case is stronger than ever for a running back to finally be hoisting that MVP trophy. The fact that he's still sitting at 20-1 behind all these quarterbacks on DraftKings is mind-boggling to me. I mean, look at what he is doing. 459 yards rushing on 80 carries. He's ripping off nearly 6 yards per carry, and don't even forget what he's able to do through the air as well. He's still under 20 receptions for the year, but he's still added a touchdown that he did last week, over 141 yards. And don't forget that last year he also passed for a touchdown. So if you want to put him toe-to-toe with quarterbacks, the guy can throw too. So he's coming off of a 4-touchdown game. You always need those signature moments. I think the hype around the MVP for Christian McCaffrey would be higher if it weren't for what Josh Allen did against the Miami Dolphins, and arguably what was looking like the game of the week until the game actually started and Buffalo put those worries to rest. But we'll talk about that game here in a few moments. I just think if McCaffrey keeps the pace up that he's playing with, and he'll get to potentially have a signature game again going up against a strong Dallas Cowboys defense that isn't too strong against the run coming up in prime time this week. So I think it would be crazy to not have him in the MVP discussion. And if he has another multi-touchdown game, he's going to have to be in that MVP discussion come the end of the year.
So I'm obviously not going to even attempt to take away anything from Christian McCaffrey, but when it just comes to the MVP, right? Like, you can also make the case, and again, you could tee this up to Kyle Shanahan with anything, but what Brock Purdy did also deserves so much credit. Again, I know it's the Cardinals. I know that a lot of it is scheme, but it's just very hard for me to get to the running back, even when you look at the highlights and it's McCaffrey just creating things on his own. Like, he's an absolute animal. But when you have what Josh Allen did, what Lamar Jackson is doing so far this season, again, even down to what C.J. Stroud, the rookie, is doing, then his own quarterback is only incompleting one pass throughout the course of a football game. It's just hard for me to give the nod to a running back.
Yeah, and for me, the thing is, I definitely am not trying to take anything away from what Brock Purdy has done, but how much easier does Brock Purdy's job become when you have an absolute weapon like Christian McCaffrey, and also just this dynamic offense? Like, there is a wealth of riches that Purdy is working with. So I feel like that's what lessens his case a little bit. But certainly when you have a game where you only throw one incomplete pass, it's hard to disagree with the strong job that you're doing there. So, and I know that it's a quarterback award. It's become a quarterback award. I'm just saying at 20-1, that's a little head scratching to still be giving me that much money. Maybe, you bring that value down a little bit and go with him as the offensive player of the year. That's really the running back award versus the quarterback award and the wide receiver award that is MVP. So I'm just saying there's a case to be made for Christian McCaffrey, and damn, does he look good.
He looks absolutely fantastic. And update on the markets there. FanDuel Sportsbook 25-1 for McCaffrey to win the MVP, the best odds. That goes all the way down to 14-1 at MGM. And OPOY, DraftKings hanging the best price, plus 225 for McCaffrey. And no debates for me. As long as that man stays healthy, the 49ers offense has shown no signs of slowing down. Again, huge game Sunday night. Finally, we'll get at least blessed with a good primetime game this weekend as we have the 49ers and the Cowboys facing off. But we will get to that game, I'm sure, on our Thursday edition. But stick around right now because we're going to talk about some other storylines and also a big breakdown of Thursday Night Football because I have a ton of thoughts on this one and some actionable bets for you. But before that, Newbie and I, we need to issue an apology to all the viewers. We doubted Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to begin the season. 4 weeks later, I'll hand up. Buffalo Bills are a fantastic football team, and Josh Allen put on a clinic of a performance against arguably one of the worst defenses in football. And I do say that with a grain of salt because that was the problem. But, Newbie, what can we take away from Josh Allen's performance? And, we doubted him and we should not have.
Yeah, and that's also why we didn't victory lap after the struggles maybe out of the gate for the Buffalo Bills. Now they have to travel and head on over the pond, so we'll see, is there any letdown spot coming against the de facto home squad in the Jacksonville Jaguars who get to stay over in London for this game coming up. But as far as what we've seen, I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in what this offense does, right? I mean, they're number one in drives that end with a score. And it's not just, it's impressive. This is like an unprecedented clip that they're doing. 57% of the times that Buffalo's offense has stepped out on the field, they've ended with points on the board. Over half the time that they step on the field, they end up with points. Had to reiterate that because, my God, is that an impressive clip that they're doing. And because that offense is so impressive, it's easy to forget that the defense is number one in turnovers. And I know there's some luck that has to go with that, but ever since Sean McDermott took over play calling duties defensively, they are creative. They're rolling different coverages at teams, and even the speed that everyone was talking about the Miami Dolphins, McDermott was ready for it. He had the perfect game plan to negate what the Dolphins were doing, and once they had to play from behind, it was curtains for them. Only 5 touchdowns allowed that the Bills have given up this season. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So, impressive both sides of the ball I'll eat the crow. The year that is going to be the Bills' demise, maybe it'll come playoff time, but this team is going to be one of the players. That's for damn sure.
Even with Aaron Rodgers under center for the Jets, like there's just no way that team would have competed with this Buffalo Bills team. And Buffalo Bills are getting Von Miller back sooner than later, as he's back to cleared to practice. And he, before his injury, was playing fantastic football last year. Obviously an older player, obviously also a legend. So only adding some fuel to that defense is huge. But they also did lose Tre'Davious White to an Achilles injury, so that's something to monitor for the rest of the season, as they're now down at safety. And, of course, Trey White, who is one of the better cornerbacks in the league and has been for the past couple of years. So all things considered, though, shout out to Josh Allen for an amazing performance, putting on just an absolute masterclass. And shout out to that Bills defense that stifled, like you mentioned, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, neither player going over 60 receiving yards. And those are guys who run 60 yards in probably less than 4 seconds, and probably less than they're 40 times. Oh my God, those guys are burners. But they did a great job keeping everything in front of them, and Josh Allen's ability to take what the defense gives them. That's something that I missed that last week, is I thought that they were going to rely a lot more on the ground game and get James Cook.
Yeah.
I thought I had James Cook over rush yards in that matchup. I thought he actually had an alt line also. I thought he was going to go off, but they were prepared for Cook when he was in the backfield. Latavius Murray actually had the bigger runs there, but they didn't even need them because Josh Allen was just pinpoint with his throws, and him and Stephon Diggs putting up that 3-touchdown game. Massive for the Bills. We did not give them enough credit heading into the season, and right now I still have the Chiefs power rated slightly higher than the Buffalo Bills, but the Buffalo Bills are my number 2 team in the AFC. What about you, Newbie?
Yeah, it's no disagreement out of me. And honestly, I might even leapfrog it and put them as my number 1 after what we saw this last week. So it's certainly no disagreement from me. And you know, got to eat a little bit of crow here, but happy to do it. I mean, I want someone to knock off this Chiefs team that is quite quickly becoming the easiest team to hate in the league with what we ended up seeing on Sunday Night Football. And I know everyone wants to talk about the slide, the rig, the this, the that. It's just hard for me to get on board with this Chiefs team anymore. So I'm not going to bet with my head, or not going to bet with my heart, still going to bet with my head. But man, do I hope the Bills can finally break through in the AFC. I'm sick of seeing the Chiefs.
No, it would be fun to see Buffalo finally do it. Obviously, they have these demons dating back to when they had 4 straight Super Bowl appearances and couldn't get a single W across the board. And then now, of course, in the last couple of seasons, primed for playoff runs, and then being leapfrogged by the Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals, who we can talk about on Thursday, because they're really hitting the open at 6-point favorites against Arizona. That was bet down to 3 before I could have even picked up my phone to log into FanDuel. Honestly, that went away so quickly. And that doesn't tell you as much you need to know for as bad as the Bengals are and as good the Cardinals are for what their situation is. That's enough said. But, Newbie, let's talk some Thursday Night Football. We got to this game pretty quickly because this is a game that I have pretty strong opinions on and some thoughts on, and would love to hear kind of what you're thinking too. But I'm going to go with a little bit of a backtrack here. So, Washington minus 5.5. I bet Washington minus 5.5 on the open right away. Move to 6 with the 6.5. Okay, I could add another CLV trophy to my shelf probably. However, this morning, big fan of Cleve Analytics on Twitter at CleveTA. Amazing work that he does, and he puts out some amazing, amazing statistics. Could not recommend following him enough and his work. And he tweeted something, and also to his premium subscribers, gave out this information that is very, very important and, of course, pertinent to this game. So, dating back, there have been only 24 instances where a team has had to play on Thursday Night Football following a Sunday overtime game. Those teams are 3-21 against the spread since the year 2000, and they have a straight-up win percentage of just 25% versus an expected win percentage of 46% based on the pre-game win probabilities of those matchups. Those teams have allowed their opponents to go over their team total in 75% of those games, and those teams went over that total at an average of 4 points per game. So shout out to Cleve TA again for those numbers, but again, we never bet anything based solely off trends, and there's a billion things to come into consideration. Each game is its own entity. But Newbie, if that is not a ringing endorsement for betting the Chicago Bears plus the 7, I know it's ugly, I know it's disgusting, I know you said verbatim you would never say this again on this show, and you're not saying it, I'm saying it, but damn, like, those numbers cannot be ignored, as certain situational trends cannot be ignored, though that should not be the only thing you use to handicap.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of the times with these trends, they're fun talking points, and you know, they're small sample sizes. I mean, that's a pretty sizable sample, and if you think about it, it makes sense of why these teams struggle. Not only do you have to put together a game plan on a short week, you have to do it with a little bit of a cloud hanging over you, maybe some extra bumps and bruises. And let's be real, that game against the Philadelphia Eagles was a physical one, man. Like those teams don't like each other even a little bit. Whereas the Bears, you know, they go toe to toe with the Broncos. So, you know, some energy expended in that one. But yeah, I can't come on here. I promised the folks that I wouldn't say that I'm betting the Bears, but I'm surely not betting the Commanders. And even if you just look on what happened in this marketplace, we've seen money pour in on the over. That's up 2 points from an opening number at 42.5, sitting at about 44.5. And as you mentioned, a ton of Washington money came in as well, up to 6.5 in some spots. Circa's even hanging a 7 on this game. And I surely am not going to be putting Washington in any teaser legs. They're not going to be my my survivor pick either. After you drop those stats, it would be a sheer stay away for me. Except the over. I think there's going to be points in this game. And I know it's ticked up, still 2 points, but even at 44.5, that's probably going to be the bet for me heading into Thursday night football. And as far as, you know, something that I have already bet myself, we've done really well on this show, isolating the kicker prop market. And I think Chicago's kicker, Cairo Santos, is going to be getting over the 1.5 field goals. It's plus 135. And you're getting to this number at such nice plus money because he hasn't gone over this since week 1, and he didn't even attempt a field goal last week. So that's why you're seeing plus 135. And, you know, with all the talk of Eberflus's having that gaff on 4th down, I think when they get in 4th and short situations, that they are in a potential points situation on prime time, they want to at least show that last week was not a fluke. They can be competitive with a team that went toe-to-toe with an undefeated team. So I think they're going to be taking points when they can get it. They prove they can move the ball. And against that nice front of Washington, what's a good counter to that? It's a running quarterback. I think they'll be able to move the ball. Now, do they get it into the end zone is another question. If they start coming up short, I think they're going to take those threes. So at a nice plus money price, give me Cairo Santos over the 1.5 field goals. As long as it's plus money, I like playing that all the way down to plus 105.
Yeah, and you made some great points while you were going on the outline. So my initial thought, like right when I saw the open at 5.5, I bet that. Did not go out to any clients or anything because that number was gone before I put my phone down after taking that wager. So I'm obviously riding that, not catching down, doing anything like that. But my initial thought on this matchup is you have a Washington Commanders defensive front that can certainly dominate the Bears offensive line. And on the other hand, you have the Bears defensive line, who is one of the worst pressure rate defensive lines in football, and against Commanders defensive line, who just put up a great performance, offensive line, against the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line that is top 3 in the entire National Football League. So as we've seen that Sam Howell's MO has been in his 5 career starts is you give him time, you have good protection up front, he could survey the field, and he's got a very live arm, and he can make throws all across the entire football field. So normally that's a winning combination. Quarterback with good weapons around him, time to throw the football. A team like the Bears that already is missing one of their starting defensive backs that might be missing another 2 again this week. Like, how does that not lead to points? Add on the fact that the Chicago Bears run defense has been atrocious, and Washington actually does have a pretty good run game. They have a pretty creative run scheme in Brian Robinson. His prop is 62.5. I love to add the over there. So I'm going to get into sooner than later right now is Brian Robinson's over, because I think Washington will look to establish the run here because they're going to have to take some pressure off of Sam Howell, because there is a big letdown spot possibility here for Washington. And it's weird to call a team a letdown spot, you know, when they've just lost their last game and they lost their last 2 games, and, you know, they're playing. They're not like they're winning football games. If the Miami Dolphins put up 70, yeah, they're due for a letdown. You're talking about a team that's lost 2 games due for a letdown. But the struggles that Washington's had with mobile quarterbacks, not just this past season already in 4 games, but throughout the course of Jack Del Rio's tenure as the defensive coordinator as the Washington Commanders defense, just can't be overstated. Guys like Daniel Jones, who, as we saw last night, should probably not even be in the National Football League as a starter, have great numbers against his defense. Jalen Hurts put on an absolute clinic, and while obviously the Bears don't have a wide receiver as good as A.J. Brown, I'm still to get some kind of passing game working. And even Russell Wilson, you were able to sack bunch a couple weeks ago, like still put up some very good numbers and almost won that football game on the last second and beat us. So the back door for this 7 will be absolutely wide open all game long, and I just don't see a way the Commanders win by margin. Now,
it's hard to disagree. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's contradictory to say because I'm holding this 5.5 ticket and I bet it because I thought initially that like that's a good number. 5.5 is a dead number in football.
You do have the CLV?
Yeah, still have the CLV trophy, which hasn't been all too meaningful so far this season. But Nubia, maybe I'm just trying to get you to talk me into liking Washington as a teaser leg because that was my first thought. Washington minus 5.5. Washington teased down to PK. Like, don't think twice. Yep. But the more that I kind of break this down and think about it differently, the more avenues I see to Washington not winning this football game.
Yeah, and that's why, for me, the play that I was initially going to come on here was going to be talking about a negative EV, stinky game, a negative EV, just fun pizza money bet. And that was going to be taking the total down in a teaser. I know, don't tease totals in the NFL, blah, blah, blah. Again, I said it's a negative EV bet. It's just for fun here on a Thursday night. I was going to take that total down, go over it, and then tease Washington down to essentially a pick 'em. And then you drop those stats. And I think they are meaningful and impactful when you're talking about a team coming off of overtime, now being a favorite on a short week and a week that they have expended a lot of energy. And maybe there's also an element of a bit of a backbreaker, whereas Chicago, sure, they end up losing that game, but they finally had something in a season to actually build off of and be excited about. So I love trying to make a case. I love my teasers and getting them through those key numbers. And this would fit the mold of a Wong teaser leg, but just those stats of how these teams do with a strong sample size and a lot that makes sense to back up those stats. And at least this case, I can't make a case for Washington. They certainly wouldn't be, if I was still alive in Survivor, they wouldn't be one of my Survivor picks, that's for sure. And with that conduit, I definitely wouldn't be putting them in a teaser leg as well. So it's not like I'm rushing out to bet the Chicago Bears. Like I told you, I got the kicker prop in this one, and I'm going to swoop in on whatever the closing number is on the over in this one. So that's the way I'm going to be betting this game. 2 plays for me. I can't make a case for the Washington side, even though before we started recording here, I definitely thought it made sense and it fit the mold. It's going to be a stay away. I can live if this one ends up cashing and I'm not on it.
And again, a situation where it should Washington win this football game, 110%. But as we know from watching football for probably all of our lives, everybody, that is not how it transpires in the NFL whatsoever. And speaking of overs, Newbie, you and I both talked about how we thought the total in the Philly-Washington game was too low, and we would have cashed that alternate overs by miles and miles if we would have stuck with our guns there. But my just last thought on this match, again, I'll be in attendance, and I'm seeing 1-1-1 in going to Washington games. I was at a win a couple years ago against the Giants, a loss against the Eagles last year, and then also the tie against the Giants last year. So something has to give, Newbie, in my Washington Commanders live game viewing. Some tie is getting broken this week.
I love it, man. I'm hoping it does for you, man. Hopefully they get it home for you, and then we can talk about, man, we should have hit this teaser leg. But hey, maybe you'll even cash that 5.5. Finally, your CLV trophy comes home for you. Maybe we'll see Thursday Night Football. I honestly think whenever it's these kind of games, I feel like they set up better than the highly billed Thursday night games that end up being stinkers. Like when it's 2 bad teams, somehow, some way, those end up being the best Thursday night football games. So that's why I think we're going to have points coming on Thursday night.
And teams that are, I don't want to say like absolutely dynamic, because we're obviously not talking about the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen of the world. But we saw Justin Fields, while we both are, as I'll say, I still think he sucks, was able to put 325 passing yards and looked like a ton of fun to watch. You got Sam Howell, who, as we've seen through 4 weeks, and Eric Bieniemy, who just says, even when he was getting decked and getting sacked 9 times and throwing 4 picks, he still said, hey, get in shotgun and throw the football. So I definitely agree that we'll be seeing the ball slung around. But again, the props, you did mention Cairo Santos, Chicago's kicker, over 1.5 field goals plus 135. A prop from me, again, and I know I can't even speak. I do think Sam Howell is still going to be able to throw the ball successfully, but I would certainly lean toward Brian Robinson's over rushing yards of 62.5. That's something that I'll know if that makes the card, honestly, by the end of the day today. So another actionable prop for you guys to keep in mind. I will also still be considering teasing down Washington, because if the Chicago Bears defense is missing these players, like the Denver Broncos are an incompetent team. Like they're talking about probably the worst defense in football. So it's hard to, you have to take it with a grain of salt, just like Washington's win against Denver a couple weeks ago. You just have to take that with a grain of salt, and we saw Washington get blown out by a good Bills team. Now, obviously, the gap between Chicago and Washington is not as great as the gap between Washington and Buffalo was, and all that. But I'm not 100% out on the Commanders as a teaser leg. But these numbers, again, shout out to TA, man. As a fan, I'm scared.
Yeah, understandably so, man. It was enough to make me flip flop. So not going to bet the other way. But I think that's one of the things that makes this show so great. Is, sure, maybe not all the time. It's, hey, bet this, bet that, bet this, bet that. But the tools that we're hopefully giving you as far as approaching handicapping, we always let you know where we find our stats from. We're not acting like we're making them up ourselves. We do a lot of research, but we're trying to give you the tools to be strong bettors moving forward. If we get you some winners in the process, that's what it's all about. But another actionable info through and through all episode long, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. And then last point on that, the total 44, that is a key number, 44 in NFL total. So if you're able to get a 43.5 at some point and you like the over, definitely go and get it in that route. And on the other way, if the number is sitting 44.5 and you like the under, get the under there. So something that you should know as an NFL better, key numbers in totals, 44 is one of them. And of course, 7 on the spread. The 6.5 now seems to be dominating the market right now. But if you do see a 7 come up, it'll be at minus 120. Or if you could even buy it to minus 120 and you like the Bears, bet it that way. If you like Commanders, lay the 6.5 because of the key numbers there. But again, want to thank everybody for tuning on in. Hopefully, we're able to get you guys some actionable information for recapping the props again. Brian Robinson over 62.5 rush yards. Santos over 1.5 field goals. A lean over and a lean toward Washington. But Newbie and I will be back on breaking down 5 more or 6 more NFL games for this upcoming weekend, like we always do on GoldSheet TV. And also, promo code for GoldSheet all access code GS7 is a 7-day pass for $79. So if you want to get in on some of the GoldSheet action, you can do that at WagerTalk.com. And of course, the newsletter is available at GoldSheet.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. And Newbie and I will see you guys on Thursday.